Well, it's time for another mini midweek special from the EFL Championship as we return to look ahead to two rearranged games on Tuesday night. Huge matches for three sides just outside that relegation zone and one team who are fighting to get back into the playoff mix but are in a rotten run of form. It's going to be two important matches. We're going to preview and predict the score for each of them. And as always, I'll encourage you guys to do exactly the same in the comments below. If you beat or match my overall score, 1 for a correct outcome, 3 for a perfect score, you'll get a shout out in the next recap on Wednesday when we look ahead to an almost full championship weekend fixture list. A few teams out of action due to the FA Cup games, which will lead to another midweek special next weekend. We'll also have a look back at the weekend that is currently in progress as this is released when we get to Wednesday's episode as well. But for now, it's all steam ahead and focus on two fixtures on Tuesday night that could have a large bearing on those final playoff places and, more importantly, the relegation zone. Because as a Luton fan, I'm recording this before Watford Luton on Sunday. This is going to be a pretty important midweek because we start on Tuesday night with the two sides directly outside the relegation zone. It is 21st v 20th as Cardiff City face Hull City. And both of these sides, I think, will be pretty happy with their weekend's work because I know for Cardiff on paper is not the best result in the world. They made it 5 without a victory in all competitions. I know they beat Stoke on penalties, but in terms of a game, we have to count it that way. But it did stop the rot yet again defensively and prevented the side below them leapfrogging them with a 1-1 draw away at Plymouth Argyle. Really important result for them and perhaps even more important in the circumstances. Having gone down to 10 men early in the second half, having then conceded just over 10 minutes later, to hold on for that final third of a game and to get themselves that point and stop Plymouth getting above them. Absolutely huge, both psychologically and on their opponents too. And it wasn't just the fact that they stopped Plymouth scoring. They largely reduced them to half chances. Yes, you could blame Plymouth for that, but defensively Cardiff, they had a pretty good structure for the most part. And in the end, they got themselves a pretty valuable point. And you've got to say for them, while they had some dismal days, particularly at Leeds away from home, and I know it was a poor day at Pompey, those results against Bristol City and Plymouth could prove to be very important points come the end of the season, especially that win over Derby just before it as well. It's just about keeping them above the dotted line at the moment. Another team that are just above that dotted line are Hull City, who, thanks to the Sunderland goalkeeper and their defending from a certain set piece, got themselves a 1-0 win away at Sunderland. It seems that Hull City are destined to only turn up away at the top sides in the league or just against the top four. That spirited fight back against Leeds, where again they were helped by a goalkeeper. The brilliant performance at Sheffield United that we wrongly said we didn't think they could replicate. And while the Sunderland game was a little bit different to that, the goal was a gift. They didn't really give up many shots on target on their own goal, and Sunderland again reduced to half chances, shots from distance for large parts of the game. Hull City were pretty incisive on the break, created a couple of good opportunities and obviously defended much better, which I guess Ruben Sellers will just be asking why they couldn't do that against all the other sides in the division where it would be much more helpful for them if at home to Stoke, for example, they could pick up points. So a really good away day for them, a fantastic result. If they can only beat the top four, they're going to be in for a bit of trouble the rest of this season. They've got to find a way to avoid defeat in these games. We know they're not the biggest goal threat. You take out that Sheffield United game, it's very rare they score more than one in a game. And while Cardiff occasionally do, as they did in the FA Cup and the Derby match, you know they're almost certain not to keep a clean sheet. Although when they were in good form earlier in the season, they were finding a way to do that. There was part of me that wanted to go for the same scoreline in both of these matches this midweek, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go completely against the grain. And look, I know I've had good runs in recent weeks. It's probably going to end this weekend. And I'm going to risk it ending again because we want to come back crashing down to earth. I'm going to go for Cardiff to keep a rare clean sheet and a very rare one in recent weeks. Hull City have produced a couple of great away displays at the top teams. But everywhere else, I mean, they've really struggled. And to be fair, their away games recently have been rotten on paper. But when they've played the sides in and around them, they've looked very ordinary and have struggled to break teams down. Maybe they need that space in behind against teams that are going to attack them. And Cardiff aren't going to do that for me. So I'm going to go for a really edgy game. I think both sides might be fearful not to lose it. We have seen a few of those types of games between the sides at the bottom. And I'm going to go, I know this is a big risk. I'm going to go for Cardiff City to win by 1-0. I've not seen Hull turn up against the teams in and around them for a while. And Cardiff, I know they don't keep clean sheets, but When they were winning those games that mattered in the last couple of years, 1-0 was the scoreline. I'm going for it here. 1-0 to Cardiff against all of my better judgment. And the second game is potentially big at both ends of the table, but it is under pressure Michael Carrick, who is taking his Middlesbrough side to face Stoke City. Stoke under Mark Robins not had the best of starts, picked up that win at Hull, picked up a big win against Swansea, but then away at Norwich defensively were an absolute mess. Of course, Lewis Baker still offering a threat at the other end. They did okay going forward, but they were a mess at the back. And away from home in particular, they're going to have to improve when it comes to their defensive performances, because 4 didn't flatter Norwich in the slightest. And to be fair, Stoke, yes, they created a couple of chances on the break, but they were never really in that game. They scored their first to get back level at half-time, then to come out and concede 3 minutes after. From there, it was a losing battle. And yes, they got the late consolation from the spot. We know Norwich aren't the best defensively, but they didn't offer much hope of getting back into it. It's a really worrying time, and Stoke seem to go through this spell every year. We saw it when Schumacher took charge before he then picked up. They can't just keep going through the same merry-go-round. And we said it when Robins came in. He's a good manager. We hope he's the one who's given time. But we said that about Schumacher the year before, and they didn't do it. Stoke are a club that are crying out for stability. We're seeing a few clubs that traditionally didn't have it. The likes of Sheffield Wednesday, Bristol City, etc. just starting to get it now. And they're starting to reap the rewards for it. Stoke City needs to be one of those clubs moving forward. And for now, they've got to turn their attention to getting away from that relegation zone, because they're only 5 points clear of it. They're in pretty poor form. And if they leave it this midweek, they could be in a bit more trouble when it comes around. And of course, if Luton do pull off a miracle win on Sunday lunchtime, it might even be 4 points by the time they kick off. One of the two sides below them at least is going to pick up points, so there's a chance they drop another place if one of them win. Stoke City have got to find a way, and they come up against a side in Middlesbrough who are, well, the worst form team in the Championship statistically. They have lost all of their last 5 matches. Last time out, 2-1 away from home at Bristol City on Friday night. They took the lead in that game with the former Bristol City man, Tommy Conway, and then gave it away in the last 20 minutes. It didn't help them as the super sub came to the rescue for Bristol City. But in truth, it was a deserved victory for the home side. They had all of the ball. They had loads of the chances. Middlesbrough have been a pretty porous defence for the most part this season, even when they've been up against those sort of top sides. And to be honest, while Bristol City are an informed team, they never really looked like containing them. The amount of times we talked about it earlier in the season, the amount of times Middlesbrough have given up 1 or 2 goal leads, it's been a little bit frightening. And going forward, they're hit and miss. They obviously have lost key players in January. They've not been able to replace them all immediately. I've been surprised by how slowly Iheanacho has started, and have not been able to adapt their style. And thanks again, from my fantasy EFL point of view, that they didn't put Finn Azaz from the start. But for this game, I think it's going to be a really tight one. 2 out of form teams largely, but Stoke have produced a couple of decent displays recently. If they can find a way to be a bit more defensively structured and solid, and they can hit on the break, as Mark Robins' teams at their best do, I think they'll give Borough problems. Borough in their last 5 games since that West Brom win conceded 2-3, 3-1 and 2. They've not really looked consistent at all at the back. So if Stoke find their form, this could be a thriller as well, because in their last 5 games, they've conceded plenty as well. I'm going to go for more goals than the first game, and I'm going to go for Stoke City to get the win here. Borough have got to hit form eventually, but I just don't see where the win comes from the way they're defending. So I'm going to go for the same score they lost by on Friday night, and for Stoke City to get a crucial win, annoyingly as a Luton fan, by 2-1 to pull another side away from danger. So let's have a quick recap then of what I've gone for this midweek. 2 home wins. Last time I did that in a midweek fixture list, it turned out to be an absolute disaster. A 1-0 victory for Cardiff City against Hull, and a 2-1 victory for Stoke City against Middlesbrough. Crucial victories for the home side, but they're just my opinion for these 2 Tuesday night games. Do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments below. Give me your score predictions for the 2 rearranged fixtures. If you beat or match my overall score, you'll get a shout out when we return on Wednesday to look ahead to 8 weekend games that have survived the FA Cup schedule. We'll then obviously be back on Sunday to look ahead to the next midweek. If you enjoyed this one, please do chuck a thumbs up on it, subscribe and turn that notification bell on to stay up to date with everything. We've got 2 manager specials, I presume imminent, with both Blackburn and Swansea still looking for a new man. If I was Swansea City, I'd probably look at Alan Sheehan now, but we'll wait and see what happens on that front. Thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the 2 midweek games, and I'll see you back here on Wednesday to look ahead to a much fuller weekend fixture list in EFL Championship.